Welcome to another episode of That Grief Relief podcast. My name is Katie Overy, and today it's an evening one in Dubai, which means I've got my ring light on, and I don't know if that makes any difference whatsoever if you're watching on YouTube, but I hope so, because I paid a lot of money for it. Today I am joined by Chris Whitfield, who is in Newcastle in the UK. He does assure me that the sun is shining, but is it cold? Chris very kindly is coming onto the podcast to talk about a support group that he set up not so long ago. So first of all, Chris, hello. Thank you very much for joining.
Hi, Katie. Thank you very much for inviting us.
You're very, very welcome. Now, to regular listeners of the podcast and very good friends of mine, including a certain Mr. Paul Clifford, they'll pick up instantly that you have a Geordie accent. Now, I do a Geordie accent all the time without even thinking about it, and probably really badly. And I'm going to do my absolute best to not do it this entire recording. I went out with Paul's from South Shields, actually, and he says, "You just don't know you're doing it, do you?" And I'm like, "Oh God, I'm so sorry."
Yeah, well, South Shields is just on the opposite side of me. I'm from North Shields, so.
Oh, okay, right. Is there tension there between South and North Shields?
It depends whether you're a Newcastle and Sunderland fan, I guess. Yeah.
He's a Sunderland boy.
Then there would probably be some tension there, I guess.
Right. Okay. I'll make sure to never introduce you. Chris, so thank you so much. We did just discuss that you finished a full day at work and now you've booked in to talk to me. So we won't make it too long. So first of all, if you can tell us all about, now we haven't spoken before. We've had a brief exchange on Instagram because I like to hear the stories kind of firsthand to then ask questions naturally, I suppose. You've started a support group called Miscarriage for Men, which I guess is exactly what it says on the tin, but I would love you to tell me more.
Yeah, so we launched the website back at the start of March. And it's absolutely taken off, to be honest. So the whole premise around the website was me and my wife went through a miscarriage back in February, and it was we were 12 weeks into the pregnancy at the time, and going through miscarriage itself at any time is a horrible thing to go through. But the fact that we went through it in a pandemic as well made things 10 times worse. So basically, what had happened was my wife started getting some pains, and these normal things around pregnancy where there's something not quite right. We contacted the doctor and they said, yeah, we'd like you to come in and have a look. Prior to that, at 9 weeks, myself and my wife had a private scan done. So we'd seen baby, we'd seen the heartbeat, things were looking good. Just before we were due to go for the 12-week scan, that was when she started having some pains and we knew there was something not quite right. We went for the scan, and when we phoned the hospital at first to make the appointment to go in, they turned around and said, yeah, but you're going to have to come in by yourself because of COVID regulations. You can't have anyone accompany. So I was like, right, okay. I was like, in this kind of scenario, you want to be there holding your partner's hand, and comforting them. So I'm sat there in the car waiting for my wife to go in and get scanned and find out what's going on. And of course, she was told the news that unfortunately it looked like we'd lost the baby. There was no heartbeat. The worst thing about that was that you then have to have 2 weeks, because it could be your baby was measuring smaller, and it could be that they hadn't detected a heartbeat. Thing was, we'd had the private scan at 9 weeks, so we knew what was coming. Basically, that was the thing for us. And my big thing around it was just making sure that my wife was all right. Now I've got a 12-year-old daughter from a previous relationship who my wife treats like her own. She absolutely loves it a bit. But this would have been mine and my wife's first baby together.
Okay.
And my big thing was making sure my wife was all right, and then I had to get it into my head how I was going to explain to my 12-year-old daughter that I knew brother or sister wouldn't be joining us.
Of course.
So it kind of hits you from both elements. Now, I wanted to make sure that they were all right first and foremost, and you kind of put your own feelings to the back burner. So it was a case for me where I wasn't really concentrating on myself. I was, they were the primary focus. And then I realized that when I'd finished looking after my wife and she'd gone to bed, I was then looking for answers. I wanted some sort of peer-to-peer support group where I could speak to people who were going through the same thing or who had been through it.
Yeah.
And just get some sort of support that way. I didn't want any professional help. I didn't think I needed it. And I wanted just to be able to speak to somebody. And I couldn't find that. I looked all over the internet, and in the depths of the internet somewhere, these kind of things have been hidden, because I've came across a few groups since. but you go into Google search and you can't find anything. You know,
do you mean specifically for men or just surrounding miscarriage?
To be honest, for both, really.
Really?
You know, there's a lot more support out there for females than there is for males. But when you search for male support groups around this, there was very little. There's lots around mental health and stuff like that, which you could probably jump into. But actually honing into the specifics of miscarriage, that was where there was very little. And that was kind of where I got my grief relief from, if you will, because I sat down afterwards and I thought, right, okay, I need to do something about this, you know, and I load ships for a living. I don't make websites, you know, so I went on to YouTube, I watched the YouTube video and I thought, I can do this, you know, signed up to Wix and started building it. And that was, you know, and that was the beginning of it. And once the website was ready and I showed it to my wife and I was like, look, this is what I'm going to do, just so you know, this is what I've been working on. You know, she was fine with it, you know, because she knew that was my relief, being able to create this. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to put down in words how I was feeling. And for me, I've got a great support network. You know, I could bring my best mates up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, guys, I need a chat. You know, but not everybody's got that. And I think that was the other thing around it. And so the website was built. We launched it on the 7th of March. And I just thought, you know, I'm gonna create a LinkedIn post and tell people what I've been through, and you know, tell them that, you know, it's all right to be in that scenario where you can actually talk to people and get these feelings off your chest. And you know, even if it just helped one person at that time, that's what I was aiming to do, you know. And that was where it started from. So I put this on LinkedIn. I had quite a few connections on LinkedIn anyway, you know, and obviously a lot of them are close work contacts and things. And all of a sudden it just took off, you know. In the first night I had over 10,000 views of the post, and you know, I had 4,500 likes of the post, and I was just like, what on earth has gone on here? Fast forward where we are now, 5 weeks later, the post had over 3 million views, over 87,000 likes, and I've had nearly 100,000 visitors to the website. So
oh my God, that is incredible. I mean, that's where I found you. It was LinkedIn, and I didn't go looking for you. It was again through a connection. And I saw the post. I mean, that is phenomenal, and that just goes to show how clearly desperately in need it was.
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, you know. And I've got guys reaching out to me who have bottled their feelings up for over 25 years. You know, like they're saying, you know, I had a miscarriage back in the late 90s. You know, when there was nothing like this, you know, and I really could have done with a platform like this. And you know, I think it's crazy the fact that we can send helicopters up to Mars and stuff like that, yet we haven't got basic support platforms, you know, for people to be able to reach out and speak to. And you know, a lot of the guys who've reached out to me have said the same thing, whereby, you know, they didn't want professional help because they didn't feel that they needed that. They just wanted someone who'd been through the same scenario as them to help them. You know, and that was basically where we started from. And the thing was, with the whole thing with Miscarriage for Men, while it's titled Miscarriage for Men, I haven't got any issues with anybody coming on the platform, male, female, it doesn't make a difference. And we've had quite a few women come onto the platform asking, you know, how can I help my partner? Is there something that I can do?
Of course.
You know, because they're looking for this help as well, because they can clearly see that their partner's hurting, but they don't know how to approach the subject. And I think the big thing around it is that miscarriage in general has got a huge taboo around it. You know, people don't like talking about it. And the issue that comes with that is people don't know how to talk about it. Nobody's briefed for this kind of thing. And
no, at all.
And that's the thing. And when we were at the hospital, you know, and I take nothing away from the NHS, you know, because they've been outstanding during this pandemic with the stuff they've had to deal with and things. You know, it must have been horrific for them, and they've not been able to offer the services out that they normally would. And we were basically given a pamphlet and sent them away, you know. And it's kind of like, you know, it was one of them where you kind of like, there should be better controls in place for this kind of thing. And the strangest thing about it was when we went to the hospital to find out that we were actually going through the miscarriage phase, was 3 days later, I would have actually been allowed into the same room to see the baby for the 12-week scan.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, God.
So I wasn't allowed to be there for the emergency appointment, but 3 days later, I would have been allowed. That makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever.
Yeah, but that's because COVID only comes out at midnight and at the weekends, and
and that was the thing. And then, of course, my wife was given this pamphlet, sent back to the car to then explain to me what's gone on. You know, and I mean, you know, that walk back from the maternity department back to the car must have been like a million miles for her, you know. And and that was the craziest thing about it. And then of course we're sent home and just kind of like, well, what happens now? What
I was going to say,
next?
What does happen now? Is there any follow-up support from, and again, we're not here to bash the NHS, they are under a ridiculous amount of pressure, but what is the next step?
Well, the next step for us was we were told to come back in 2 weeks' time. And that was it, so them 2 weeks were like the longest 2 weeks in the world, and we're trying to get our head around what was going on. And then of course we're then thinking, we've obviously told close friends and family what's going on, and now we're going to have to explain to them again, what's happened. And and that was the thing. And like you say, you take nothing away from the NHS, because they're absolutely fantastic at what they do, but I think the government have failed people in relation to miscarriage, in terms of the regulations that have been put down for this to hospitals, because certain hospitals in London and stuff like that were actually letting partners visit for emergency situations.
Right, yeah.
But then each hospital seemed to make their own rules up.
Yeah.
And I think that was where it should have been, it should have been a clear message across the board that in this scenario, it either was you were allowed to attend or you weren't. That's the way that it should have been. But the fact that people in London are saying, well, actually, when we were going through our miscarriage, we were actually allowed to stay together. And then I've got people in the northeast who are saying, well, actually, we weren't. And
and that can't help your kind of mental state anyway, because that then gets you worked up sort of regardless. And it's almost like, well, I don't want to be worked up about that, but it's really annoyed me. And then it's just a snowball effect, isn't it? When you're, you sitting in, first of all, so you sitting in the car waiting for your wife, it must be one thing. And then, as you say, your wife coming back out. How on earth was that when she got in the car?
Oh, it's a horrific scenario to be in, because the thing is with that, there's nothing you can do to make the situation better. That's the be all and end all of it. As a partner, you want to be, you want to be the strong one. You want to comfort and support your partner, but there's nothing you can say or do in that moment that can appease the situation. We sat there in silence, or in the car journey all the way home. And then it wasn't until we got home that you actually then starting to think, well, what do we need to do now? And I think that one of the big things that comes out of it is the fact that you're in that scenario where you get them 2 lines on the pregnancy test, and it starts at day 1, and you can be 1 day, or you can be 1 week, or you can be 30 weeks into your pregnancy. The excitement starts at that first moment, and you've got everything, you're thinking, do we need a bigger house? Do we need a bigger car? All this type of thing, and then all of a sudden it's snatched away from you just like that. And it's, and I think the support element of that is where I'm not going to say let down, because that's the wrong words, but I think, it could have been handled a lot better than what it actually was.
And you needed more, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
You mentioned, sorry, Chris, you mentioned being strong, and for those of you that aren't watching on YouTube, like I'm looking at you, Chris, you're a lad. You said you're like, what did you say you did? Loading ships? Yeah,
so I'm an operations manager for a shipping company.
Right, okay, on the docks. Right, happy days, from the northeast, and you're a big burly northern man and all of this, and you just think, at what point do you have to let yourself be vulnerable as well? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there, do you think there's still a societal thing of like, well, you're the man and you have to do this?
Absolutely. And that's the big thing, and I done an interview, a newspaper interview with the Journal. And, the journalist who was there says exactly the same thing. You're from the northeast, there's this stigma, mining town, all this type of stuff, behind you. And it is one of them where you feel like you've got to be the dominant person in this. You're the one who's got to have the strength. And, it is one of them where you think, if I go back generations and I look at my stepdad and I look at my grandfather and stuff, I never seen them cry ever.
And that's not even that far ago, is it? That's one generation away.
And that was the thing. And you go back and you look at that and you never see that sort of thing. Granted, they probably did at some point, but you never actually seen it because they didn't want to do that. And they didn't want that emotion to be in front of you. And I think that's what comes with it as well. And I think that's where we run into further problems down the line, is because everything at some point has a relief moment and something has to give at some point. And it is one of them where you will eventually get to that point where something will just snap. And and I think that's the hard part from it, because that's why we end up in the situation that we're seeing in society, with people committing suicide and all this type of stuff. And it's because, you know, there's so much stigma around guys not being able to talk and not being able to have mental health problems and everything else that comes attributed with that. At some point, there is a breaking point, you know, and that breaking point can happen at any time. And for me, it was one of them where I had to put my focus into something, because if I didn't, that breaking point would have come at some point. And my breaking point was creating the website, because, you know, I managed to channel my grief into that and put everything down in words, what I wanted to get out. And like I say, you know, for me, it was never an issue from a support realm, because I've got that there. But rather than burden them with what I was going through, I wanted to put it down there. And if my thoughts and feelings and what I was going through with my wife could help one other person, then that's all I wanted from it. So
yeah, happy days. And I guess there's ultimately as well, there's a difference between, of course, you've got your good friends, and as you say, you can call them at 2 o'clock in the morning and have a beer with them at any point. But ultimately, yeah, they haven't experienced what you've experienced. And sometimes it is, yeah, you need that. You need that. And sometimes even, again, just to sit in silence and just be in that, I mean, I guess virtual company at the moment, but just be within that company, and you know it's a safe space. Because as you say, I mean, you know, we're speaking quite openly, and it's, I haven't experienced it. Very good friends of mine and my family have experienced it, but it means, you know what I mean? I can't, is the word empathize? I can't empathize. I can't even begin to imagine what you've gone through. So the support group that you've created must just be, I mean, quite literally a lifeline for some.
Yeah. And that's the thing, you know, and like I mentioned before, you know, I've got guys who went through this, you know, 25, 30 years ago, who are saying, you know, I could have done with this platform back then. Yeah. And, you know, they're thanking us and saying, thank you so much for creating this space, you know. And like I say, not just guys, there's actually women coming onto the platform as well and saying, thank you so much. I had one lady who contacted me and says that her partner wanted to open up and talk about it, but he didn't want to do it in a forum. And I says, that's fine. I says, if you want, you know, you can drop me a direct message and I'll speak to him that way if you want. It's not a problem. And what he done was, all he done was he shared the link for the platform on a dad's group that he's part of.
Oh, okay.
And because he shared that, he had 3 or 4 guys reach out to him straight away. Are you okay? You know, is everything all right? And that started the conversation between him and his friends, because they didn't even know that he'd gone through miscarriage, because he kept it all to himself. But because all he done was shared the link, and obviously it brought up the thumbnail from the website. Straight away they asked him, is everything all right? Do you want to chat? You know, but they hadn't previously reached out and said anything, because they didn't know. You know, and that was because he kept his feelings bottled up. And, you know, and that's what it's all about. And, you know, if I can get people talking, and we can lift, you know, even just a little bit of the stigma around miscarriage and get people talking about it, you know, it develops from there. You know, I've collaborated with a couple of different groups now who are, you know, mental health advocates and stuff like that as well. You know, and it all does tie in, you know, because there's a lot of stuff that comes with miscarriage, you know, the anxiety, the stress, all this type of thing. So, you know, for me, it wouldn't make a difference if there's 50,000 different platforms out there who are doing the same thing that I'm doing. I would share every single one of them, because at the end of the day, it might reach just that one person that needs that little bit of comfort. And, you know, the guys they're willing to engage. They just want somebody to make that first step. And I think that's the big problem. I watched the documentary last week about Rod Gilbert, when he's talking about infertility issues. Yeah. And that was the same thing. He was saying, you know, he looked all over Google and stuff like that and couldn't find anything, you know, and it took him to get a support group of 6 guys in a pub to start talking about it, who were all going through infertility issues, yet he couldn't get all the help that he wanted. Yeah. You know, and, you know, this guy's you class him as a celebrity, you know. He, you know, and he's in the same scenario whereby him and his wife were going through this infertility journey. Yet he didn't have anyone to open up or share, you know, what he was going through with. So he then created it, you know, something himself in order to drive this forward. And it's, like I said before, you know, it's frightening that it's taken something like this in order to build them platforms. And like I said, you know, for me, it was never about asking for professional help, because that's not what I needed. But what I needed was the support of other guys to say, guys, how did you handle this situation? And it just went from there. And the thing for me is that we've got on the website, we've got a helpful links page on there. And on the helpful links page is links to, you know, some wonderful charities. You know, we've got the Miscarriage Association on there, Tommy's, the For Louis Foundation, all these wonderful people who do offer those professional services in terms of, you know, grief counselling and all this type of stuff. And I start every single message the same way, who come onto our page and send messages, and I say, look, you know, I'm not a professional, but what I am is I am a listening ear, and I have been through and gone through what you're going through right now, and I can only tell you how I fared on my journey in order to try and give you some hints and tips of what you're about to face.
I mean, it must just be quite incredible for the messages that you've received, I would have thought, as well, from all walks of life. Has it, maybe a stupid question, but have you had messages from people outside of the UK, presumably?
Yeah. I've done 2 podcasts in Australia now as well. I've done 1 in America. And I've got people from all over the world who want to get involved with the website, and that's the next step for us, is because at the moment, obviously, I'm just a one-man band. There's just me doing it at the moment. But moving forward, I will be getting people involved. We're going to launch a new version of the website in the coming 10 days or so, which will make it very more fine-tuned, because I've got a website developer working on this now, which, you know, is much better than my amateur version that I made originally.
It's not bad. I think you've done really well.
It's all right. It's all right. But now I've got a proper web developer looking at it, and, you know, they've made some, you know, changed all the fonts and stuff like that. And, you know, I've seen a preview of it, and it looks fantastic. And it's such a smoother journey for the people who want to go onto the website to find things, which has made things really good. So we hope to launch that in the next 10 days or so. And then after that, I will be reaching out to people to get involved, because I want it to be a 24-hour platform. You know, I want to be able to have an administrator on there 24 hours a day, so that someone logs on, there's somebody on there to answer that message like that. Because at the moment, you know, I'm running it until, you know, 11 o'clock, 11:30 UK time, and then there's nothing until 7 a.m. at the following morning. So it's kind of, you know, there's kind of an 8-hour gap there where somebody may need some help. But if I can get people who want to get involved from, you know, America, Australia, then we have the time zones covered off, and it'll be a 24-hour platform moving forward.
Oh, that is absolutely incredible, Chris. I mean, the fact that you've done it in such a short amount of time, and I guess it just shows that, you know, you've really harnessed all of that energy and anxiety, and I guess anger and sadness, and just to help other people. Why do you think, age-old question, why are these conversations still so tough? Why are they, you know, you spoke about infertility. I think I know so many men and women who've suffered with infertility, and I also know people who are, you know, recently married, and they're thinking about having kids, for example. Not a clue that, you know, it's not just a case of a bit of how's your father, and next thing you know, you've got a baby. It's so, why is this a thing?
I think you hit the nail on the head earlier on in terms of why guys don't want to talk about it. You know, I think we see ourselves as the strong dominant one. You know, it's not for us to get upset. You know, it's not for us to join support groups and all this type of thing. I think that stigma around it is very much still there, where people think, you know, oh, if I go down the pub on a Friday night and I tell the guys, oh, I've joined a support group, you know, they're gonna ridicule you for it. Which is not the case. You know, it's and I think that's the thing. And I think because that stigma is still there, people have that mindset that they're thinking about this constantly, that, you know, they will be seen as a soft target if they tell their group of guys that they've joined a support group. You know, and I think that's still very much there. And I think that goes for females as well, because, you know, the people who've reached out on the website, you can see, you know, they're telling me, you know, I wish somebody would make this kind of thing for females as well. You know, and there is more groups out there for females, certainly in the likes of Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But again, peer-to-peer support, I think, is very thin on the ground. And like I said before, you know, if you have 50,000 groups, you know, great. You know, the more groups there is, the better. Everyone's trying to achieve the same goal here. That's the key. But I think there's very much still, you know, that stigma there that you're going to be seen as a soft target if you say you've joined a support group or whatever. And I think the other issue is that people are not trained on how to deal with miscarriage. You know, I think that's a difficult one as well, because I don't think there's enough out there in HR guidelines, in HR handbooks, in employee handbooks, how to deal with this kind of thing. And if there is, they're very much written by people who've never experienced it. they're
Right.
reading from a book, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge as well. You know, because I've had some, you know, some big companies reach out to me and said, oh, look, we'd love to share your website in our, you know, in our ERP group and stuff like that. Is, you know, do you mind us doing that? And, you know, are you happy for us to share your link in our HR manual and things? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
if it helps somebody, you know, crack on, it's not an issue. And I think, you know, I think one of the issues around it is the conversation itself. Because the first thing that happens is after that is you go back to work, or you go back to, you know, you go out with the guys and stuff, and it's very much tailor made, where they'll go, oh, how's your wife, you know, and that's the first part.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be people who you work with as well. You know, first things first is, oh, how's your wife, you know, yeah, you're working there day to day with them, you know, and I think that's one of the issues as well. But then it's a case of they'll come up to you and say, oh, I'm sorry for your loss, and then you go, oh, thank you, and then nobody knows what to say.
Yeah.
Because that's the, you know, that is the end of the conversation, you know,
Yeah.
and it can be just something as simple as, you know, I know you probably don't want to, but if you want to talk about it, you know, let's grab a coffee in the kitchen, and, you know, I'm here if you need us, you know, and that's all it needs, is just that simple bit. And you never know, you know, that person might actually open up to you and everything might come out.
Yeah.
But I think because people aren't trained in how to deal with this, I think it can be handled so much better in terms of, you know, when you're doing company joining packs and stuff like that, or, you know, putting managers through training programs in terms of how to deal with grief. Because, you know, again, people are, you know, for me, you're gonna throw yourself back into work, you know, because that's your thing to take your mind off it. I want to get back to work. I want to get back to some normality, and I'm just going to throw myself into it. And deep down, you know, they're struggling. That's the thing, you know. And I've had that message a couple of times off different guys, where they've said the only way for them to deal with it was to throw themselves back into work. And then they get to work and don't realize what they're doing because they're making silly mistakes and things like that. And that's because their mind's elsewhere. You know, it's not focused on the task at hand.
And you don't think about it, I guess, as well, because I guess it's just like any form of grief, in terms of it might raise its ugly head in a day, a week, a year, whatever. And that could be a particularly dangerous thing, I guess, both physically and mentally, I suppose, in the long term. Did you, what was the support you had? I mean, not throwing your company under the bus, but what was the support that both you and your wife had from your respective works?
Yeah, I mean, our companies were great in terms of what they'd done for us. You know, I rang my boss and I just said to him, look, I told him what we were going through. I said, I need a bit of time off. And he basically turned around and said, yeah, not a problem. Just let us know when you're coming back, you know. But that's what you want to hear. You know, that's you know, if you need anything, you know, let me know. Whereas I've had guys who've actually messaged out on the page and told us that they phoned the company and said, oh, by the way, you know, me and my partner have gone through a miscarriage. And they're like, all right, okay, well, we'll thoughts are with you, but we'll see you back on Monday, yeah? You know, and like, you know, that's the first thought in that mindset is, yeah, well, you know, we're short staffed, so we need you back at work. Well, I'm sorry, but, you know.
And I guess the thing as well is the fact that it's almost as the same conversation asking about your wife, is because she's had the physical loss, that then, you know, we need to look after her, and not even thinking about the emotional side of it, or even the fact that even if you are hunky-dory, you want to be there with your partner.
Of course, exactly. You know, and it's frightening that companies can turn around and be so lax about things, you know, in terms of, oh, well, we're short staffed, so we need you back Monday, you know, and this has happened on a Saturday, you know, so they're getting a day to process their thoughts, and that's where the problem stems from. And you end up in a scenario, like we said before there, at some point that snap's going to come. Now, if you're driving heavy machinery or something like that, and your mind's elsewhere, you know, you've got an absolute minefield on your hands in terms of dealing with that. And I think that's one of the issues that I tend to see more coming onto the page, is in terms of how do companies approach this in a better way? You know, can they adopt, you know, HR manuals in order to put miscarriage in there? You know, and two big companies, I'm not going to mention them, but two big companies have reached out and said that they've actually changed their HR policy on the back of what I've created. Amazing. You know, in order to be able to comply and be able to help their staff, both male and female. And they're actually a male dominant company. And they've actually said, we're going to change our HR policy to include miscarriage, so that if one of our staff workers are going through this, they will get adequate time off. They'll get adequate support through an EAP program, and they'll be paid for the time off. You know, and that's great. You know, it's crazy to think that something so big has come on the back of something so small in the grand scheme of things. You know, from what I've created. So,
and in a short space of time, I guess, in theory, you said sort of 6 weeks the website has been up.
Yeah.
Do you ever, I know that you mentioned about you wanted it to, you know, eventually go 24 hours and make sure that everywhere around the world has support if they need it. But as we've already mentioned, you work full time and you obviously still have a family of your own. Is it tough for you? Are you finding it hard?
Do you know what? It's. I think because I've managed to start scheduling stuff better, I think that's helped. Okay. You know, but like you say, in terms of what it is right now, yes, it is, because I'm doing my full-time job and then I'm coming home and doing this on an evening. But at the same time, it does help me as well when I'm, you know, constantly talking about things, because, you know, we're still going through this grieving period, but it's widening the grieving period in terms of being able to actually get it out there and say to people, you know, we're going through this, but we're going to battle it every step of the way. And if I can help one other person while helping myself, then that's what I want from this. You know, it was never about costs or anything like that, because I put everything in myself. You know, I just wanted to be able to get a platform out there where people can start interacting, you know, and eventually we can grow this. You know, I've seen the response it's had in 6 weeks, you know, and it's been ridiculous. And, you know, in a post-COVID world, I've got some big ideas in my head in terms of what I want to do next. Like I say, I've already got guys and girls who actually want to get involved and actually want to help out with the website, which is great, because then that means I can take a bit of a step back in terms of, you know, administration side of stuff. But the good thing about it is that I currently have my 12-year-old daughter. You know, she helped us out when I was saying, all right, okay, we need to get a diary together, we need to schedule it, so we're going to do this. And her first thing was, how much are you going to pay us? You know, so it's
good girl.
You know, but yeah,
you've brought her up very well, Chris. Or maybe not from your side, anyway.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's
you are paying her, aren't you?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes. Okay, all right. I'm just double checking that you are. I also hear a fun run, post-COVID fun run. That's what we want, to raise money and keep everything going.
So we're doing it. We've got some big plans. The next, once we've got the website out there, the new website out there, the next plan is to get some guys in and girls in who want to help out on the administration side of stuff. And then I have some grief counsellors and therapists who also are willing to help out. They're willing to put on some Zoom calls and stuff like that, you know, just to talk them through that, you know, the whole grief therapy as such, and how they can help themselves in order to be able to help their partners. And then in a post-COVID world, we plan to look at maybe doing some support groups actually out and about, in terms of being able to meet up with groups of guys, you know, and one of the other things that we said was from a Zoom point of view, you know, it's so easy to set up now with everything that's gone on in the pandemic. You know, everything's done by Zoom or Teams or, you know, everything like that. And what we said was, you know, we're willing to host a weekly, you know, call as such. And they don't even have to talk about, you know, what they're going through for miscarriage or anything. It can just be that they want some, you know, have a friendly chat with a guy. You know, it could be about football, it could be about boxing, it could be about anything. You know, just being able to get them to talk. And then what follows with that, you know, who knows? It could be then they open up and go, well, actually, now I think I'm ready to tell my story because I've managed to get to know you guys. So we have some big plans moving forward. So
I love that. And I think as well, because counselling and therapy is not cheap. And there are people out there that are probably in desperate need for it, but literally can't afford it. I actually don't know how much counselling is in the UK, but I'm guessing it's what, 100 quid an hour or something silly, isn't it?
Yeah, it will be.
And that, obviously that's not cheap for anyone. And sometimes that's just what they need. So if you're able to offer that with, you know, a free service, you are doing some really, really good things. Is it like a membership? Do people have to sign up and register so that it's not like you're obviously data capturing? That's not what it's for. But are you trying to create a community that way?
Yeah. So what we've done is we put a sign up facility on there. And that's just so they can see what we're doing. So what we can do is we can go out with some email marketing and say, look, guys, we've got something big coming. Keep your eyes peeled on the post or on the forum or whatever. we're never going to charge like a membership fee or anything like that. It's just,
no.
It's a free service that we offer. It's just a chat room. That's what it is basically. But they don't have to log in. They don't have to log in any details or anything. The only time they would have to do that is if they want to post in the forum. And then even if they do that, they can log in anonymously, so they can put a fake name in and stuff like that. And nothing will be kept. It's just a case that it's there. If they want to, they can sign up so that they can receive emails from us in terms of what we're going to do going forward, or they can sign up to follow me, which will then tell them when I've posted something new, either in the forum or a new blog or a new video or anything along these lines.
Oh, nice. Okay, that's good. Because, sometimes when you go onto these, and again, if they do want to be anonymous, you don't want to enter your email address and bits and pieces like that. So that's good to know. Going back to you and your story, you've mentioned it a couple of times now. Why do you not think that professional help or therapy is where you want to go down? Because a lot of people feel the same. So from your experience.
I think from my point of view, like I said before, I just wanted to chat to other guys who've been through this, because the thing is, it's all good and well having a professional service, but not necessarily has that professional been through it. And I think that's the problem. They've not lived in that scenario. Anyone can pick a book up and say, yeah, well, I've read this, and this is what I would do. And they'll attain that to being anxiety, stress, all this type of stuff. Where in actual fact, it's not that, but what you're looking for is just that next thing from guys who've been through it to say, this is what I done. This is how I started the conversation with my partner. This is how I started the conversation with my friends. And, I take nothing away from professional therapists and stuff like that. They're fantastic at what they do, but not everybody wants to go down that professional route. And again, it can be that there's a stigma there. You tell your friends down the pub, oh, I'm seeing a therapist. People jump to conclusions. And the thing is, with Chinese whispers and all this type of stuff, they think, oh, what they're seeing a therapist for, that type of thing. Yeah. And that wasn't like that for me, but it was just a case of that I didn't want professional help. I knew deep down that I would be able to drag myself out of it. I knew what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how to do it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I was going to ask, when did you come up with that then? When was it, when did you know that you needed to write this all down and then it go into Miscarriage for Men?
Something just clicked. And I think it was when I was going through all the different stuff, and like I mentioned before, the Miscarriage Association and Tommy's and stuff, when I was looking through their website, all the information is there, what you need in terms of valuable information in terms of how to help you through it, and the resources as such. And the thing I quickly realized was that there was no way, and I could have went on there and I could have spoke to their counselors and I could have said, oh, look, I need help with this. But again, that wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted to log on somewhere and just speak to guys in the chat room and just say, guys, I'm going through this scenario. Help, basically. Can you point us in the right direction? Can you give me some advice? How did you deal with this? What was the next steps? Have you had any fallout from that? All these questions were pinging around. And that was the whole reason behind starting the website, was that I knew that we could offer something like that and still point people in the right directions and say to them, guys, you know what it is? I've read a fantastic article this week on Relate, and it's all about how to converse with your partner after miscarriage or after a stillbirth. And, and then we just signpoint them, and I'm sharing them as a blog post, and I'll say, guys, this is a fantastic article on Relate. You might want to go across there and have a look at it. Or, if Tommy's or the Miscarriage Association, if they share a post that I think is valuable, that I think guys are going to get help out of, then I'll share it and send the credit back to the Miscarriage Association, and sharing links on both Instagram and on Twitter as well.
Yeah. Just anything you can to just keep getting the message out, basically.
Exactly. And that was the big thing. And like I said before, every message that we get into them, like I said, I always start with the same thing, saying, we're not professionals, but if you need professional help, I will point you in the right direction, because I am following up on these scenarios whereby if you say, look, I think I need to speak to somebody with a more, professional tone. Yeah, great. I'll help you with that, not a problem, and signpoint them in the right direction of who they need to speak to.
They're saying that you don't have a professional tone. Is that what they're
saying? Not maybe so much like that,
but Chris, moving away slightly from the website and actually more onto your personal story, if you don't mind, how you know, how were you after all of that? As you say, you had a silent drive home and you came in, and I'm sure there was a lot of tears between you and your other half. And then what did you go through? Because there might be people listening right now who haven't even gone onto the website and just want to hear it from your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it was kind of, yeah, you know, we had the silent car drive home, and then we kind of sat there, kind of just thinking, you know, what do we do next? You know, you just, again, it was a very silent day as such. We, you know, we sat in separate rooms, and we're trying to work out, you know, what do we need to do here? And at some point, you've got to have that awkward conversation, unfortunately, you know, because you know what the inevitable is, and you know what's coming. You know, that was the big thing, you know, and it's the hardest thing in the world at that point, you know, because how do you sit there and have that heartbreaking conversation with the person that you love, who's going through this both physically and emotionally. Yes, you're going through it emotionally, but your partner's going through it both, you know. And it's how do you approach that situation and have that conversation. And it was a case of, like I say, you know, because we at 9 weeks had already, you know, seen baby and seen a heartbeat and things like that. As soon as the doctor had mentioned that, you know, they couldn't find a heartbeat, we knew straight away, you know, what the inevitable outcome was. And of course, you start then, you know, you're planning in your head, you're thinking, what do I need to do next? That's the be all and end all of it. And that was for me why I needed to take some time off work, because I needed to get my head around what was going on and what to expect next. And again, you know, you can find this sort of stuff online in terms of what's next, but we didn't actually have any preparation as such, other than a rubbish NHS pamphlet basically telling us this is what you can expect. You know, so that was difficult in itself. But you know, after the first day or so, it was a case of, right, okay, we need to have this conversation now, because we need to plan for the inevitable, basically. But
who broached that? Who started the conversation?
That was me. And it was because, again, you know, you go into this, support figure as such, you know, in terms of, right, okay, you know, I need to be strong. I need to, you know, we need to get this out on the table now, and, you know, and thrash it out, basically, because it's coming, you know, and you can only delay that. You can only delay that for so long. And I think, you know, the big message that I would say to people to take away from this is just talk. You know, it might seem like it's the hardest thing in the world, but you will feel a hell of a lot better afterwards once you've actually had that conversation, and you know, and said, you know, what's going to happen next. And I think you start to come to some realization after a few days of, yeah, okay, we're in this scenario now, and you know, we're in it for the long run, because until the next step, until we go and see that doctor again, we've got to deal with it, you know. And I fully appreciate why people go through what they go through, you know, where I've had people reach out and said, oh, you know, my wife's not wanting to leave the house for 6 weeks and all this kind of stuff. And you don't, because you want to shut yourself off from the world. You want to believe it's not a reality. You know, you basically, you want to be in that scenario where you're still living in this dream world. You know, those 2 lines are still on the pregnancy test, and you want to write off what's happening. But unfortunately, you know, reality has a harsh mistress as such, you know, because, you know, these things happen, you know, daily, millions of times around the world a year. You know, 1 in every 4 pregnancies ends in a miscarriage, and you know, it's not always plain sailing. That's the harsh reality of it. So
no, and 1 in 4, and yet it still takes so much to talk about and have these things come out, and that's the thing. What did you just say? Life is a cruel mistress. Did you say? That's a great little. I thought you were going to say it's going to give you a kick in the balls or something. I said, yeah, absolutely. And obviously then you came home, you had the silence and the awkward conversations, and then obviously, as you said, the longest 2 weeks in the world ever, and then back to the hospital. So are we 6 weeks on from there, or 4 weeks on from there?
4 weeks.
4 weeks on from there. Now that is a incredibly short time for you to then A, do what you're doing, and then B, be talking about it sort of, so, you know, openly with the world. Well, you and your wife, how are you both doing?
Yeah, I mean, we're in a better position than we were, 6 weeks ago. But I think, like I go back to what I said before. This was my way of dealing with it. Similar to saying throwing yourself back into work as such. This I knew I could take time and develop as it moved forward. I never once thought that it would develop as quick as what it has, and I never once thought that it would have the interest. Like I said, the LinkedIn post, I had quite a few connections on LinkedIn anyway from what I do for my day-to-day job, and I thought, the website will get a visitor or two here, and probably my friends will go on and have a look at it and congratulate on us and starting it up and stuff like that. And yeah, it just took off. 100,000, close to 100,000 visitors now, and it's frightening. But my wife's at a point now where she's happy to get involved in the website as well. Not so much in terms of offering advice or anything like that, because that's too raw. But she certainly says, I'll help you out and take diary requests and stuff, because I'm being invited to podcasts all around the world. I'm being invited to speak at conventions and all this type of stuff, and I have to keep reminding them, I'm not a professional. I'm just I'm a 33-year-old lad from Newcastle with shipping degree, but it's like but they're coming back and saying, it is, you're the type of person that we want to speak to because you've got the real lived-in experience. And and like I say, I'm more than happy to join all these types of things, because the more we can spread the word and the more we can get people opening up and talking about it, the better it is for everybody, because you never know who's in that scenario where the next message that goes out might be the last one, and that's the harsh reality that we live in. Is we're seeing it more and more, and certainly guys, and with the suicide rates is shocking, because there's not enough being done about it. That's the big thing. And like I said before, everyone can beat the same drum, and if it might just help that one person, then so be it. And if we can get them to open up and we can point them in the right direction of getting the help that they need, then that's a wonderful thing. So
yeah, there's certainly big steps being made about everything, as you say, about sort of mental health in general, full stop. Because as you say, you touched on earlier about going to see a therapist. The feedback I've had from the podcast itself is that, and again, because I'm based in Dubai in the Middle East, so culturally I've got a lot of people that send me private messages, much like you were saying on your website, but saying that their father's passed away, so now they're head of the family, so they can't grieve, or they couldn't possibly go to counselling. Or I had a lovely young lad who has been in therapy but was like terrified of his family finding out. So we are getting there. I mean, my God, it's slowly but surely we're getting there, and it's only big steps being done by people like you. And you said you're just a 33-year-old Geordie lad, but I mean, you're absolutely right. Like, what it's like if we go to somewhere, or if someone's listening to my podcast and it's some stuffy fella, like hoity-toity in a suit and tie, like we sort of don't really believe it, and we don't really kind of gel, and we want to experience those real life experiences almost. I think it's absolutely incredible what you do. And the website is simply Miscarriage for Men, isn't it? .com. Is it
www.miscarriageformen.com.
It is .com. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Before I let you go, Chris, because I'm conscious of your time, have you had your dinner yet?
No, I will be getting that very
tea?
soon.
Hang on, is it tea where you are?
No, it's tea where we are. So breakfast, dinner, tea.
Right. Oh God, you're having your dinner at lunchtime, right? Okay, fine. I asked my guests for either a podcast or an Instagram recommendation. So, what do you have for me?
There's a fantastic podcast that I actually took part in a few weeks back, which will be launching very soon, called The Guild of Dads.
The Guild of Dads, amazing.
Basically, they are a group who try to help dads be the best they can be, basically, offering life tips and all this type of stuff. But for anybody who wants to watch it, I recommend you go over and check them out. The guy who runs it, Joe Horton, is a fantastic guy. You will enjoy it. So
Amazing. That's my my little brother's just become a dad a couple of weeks ago, and he's listening to every podcast and watching every vlog to get as much dad advice as he can. First time dad as well. Right, the Guild of Dads. I'm going to put all the links and everything on there. As Chris, I have to look at the camera now and do something important. But as Chris has mentioned a number of times, and I say on every single podcast, we're not professionals. We're not the experts. Of course, Chris has been through it, and that is the whole idea of the website. But if you have been affected by anything we've spoken about on today's podcast, then please reach out. Go straight to the website Miscarriage for Men, or it's on Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn and all sorts, and I will put all of the links below. It seems a bit silly to say like and subscribe, and I don't really care, because given the subject matter, it's like it doesn't, none of that really matters, does it, when it comes down to things like that. Chris, thank you very much. Please give everyone in your family all of my love, and I really appreciate your time, and I wish you the best of luck with Miscarriage for Men, if that's the right sort of thing to say, and anywhere and anyhow that I can help, please do let me know.
Thanks very much. Thank you for inviting us on anyway. I really enjoyed talking to you. So
you're very welcome. Have a lovely tea.
Thank you.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.